And welcome to the Rural FASD Support Network's speaker series once again. We are completely thrilled to have MaryLou MacFarlane of the Fawg Forest, who's here today to speak to us about an alternative therapy known as animal-facilitated well-being standpoint. MaryLou, she'll introduce herself in terms of her experience and how she's, the journey that she's taken to get to the place where she's at. But we absolutely are thrilled to have her here physically with us and to be able to answer any questions with our members following as well. But before we begin, we would like to acknowledge that we are on the traditional and unceded territories of the Algonquin people here in Smith Falls, where we work, play, and pray. And so, MaryLou, I will turn it over to you. And once again, thank you for joining us.
Create awareness and also clinical legitimacy to the approach, which I call animal-facilitated therapy. I'm going to share with you how I've developed this approach over the past 30 years, and a little bit of the insight about what it involves, and also give you some really concrete examples. So a little bit about me. I worked for the Royal Ottawa Hospital for 42 years, from frontline nurse to the director of patient care services. I joined a private practice with a psychiatrist from CHIO about 30 years ago. And I'm currently a clinical associate of Capelli & Associates in Ottawa and have been for about 25 years. I established Fawg Forest about 21 years ago and went on to and continue to develop this unique approach. So the reality is, and I think most people know this, that people can access mental health support in our community, very often through doctors or doctor's referral. But the response time is very slow, and the waiting lists are super long. And so it's really frustrating because a lot of people who are seeking mental health services are doing it because they're in need, and waiting around for 6 or 8 months really isn't helpful. It even gets more tough if you're looking at a very specialized kind of service, so ADHD or any of those sort of things, and then the wait list goes really big. So the only other option is private practice, and that's a fee for service. And you know, if you have the financial means and you have coverage, fantastic. The great thing about them, or the private practice sector, is very often you can access it in a more timely manner. What a lot of people don't realize is that insurance companies have a whole different set of rules. There's no congruency between company to company. So you actually have some companies who are really great, who actually opened the doors during COVID, recognized that mental health was an important thing. But then you have others that don't. So for example, some insurance companies will say, well, only psychologists can provide care. But there's not enough of those folks out there. So, and we're actually not paying attention to a whole lot of other people who are very capable and very trained to provide mental health wellness services. The reality is that there are resources in our community, little pockets of funding and money for people. Like, number one, you got to know the system, and you got to be a huge advocate to get it. So if you're, for example, a single mom and you're barely making it, the ends meet, having the time to research and find those pockets of money is very difficult. Getting excited here. I'm going to share with you some ideas about when you're looking for therapy or counseling. And the number one thing you need to do is start with, what is the specific issue you wish to have addressed? What challenge are you looking to address? And make sure that facilitator is trained to do that. And again, you know what, again, going back to the spectrum of mental health service, so your psychiatrist is at the top, right? He's the guy that went to school for 1 million years, and you know, and then there's a whole plethora of mental health workers that go underneath. So when when you're shopping, don't be afraid to ask about training and experience, and also credentials. And I think it's really important to ask the clinician if they're licensed and if they are a part of a professional association which has professional standards, because that accountability is held very, very strictly. That's why I believe that's an important thing. and this is a huge thing, is does the client feel comfortable with the therapist? Is there a connection? Do they like each other? Are they able, and are those sessions able to, you know, be met with meaning and feel helpful? I'm a little passionate about this point. Over my career, I've had the opportunity of developing a number of school-based wellness programs for kids and adolescents. And I think we've done a terrific job at teaching youth about physical health, you know, Canada Food Guide, what to eat, exercise, and all that sort of thing. But one of the things I think we failed to do is weave in mental wellness into the curriculum. The programs I developed were an add-on to the curriculum, and everybody loved them, parents, kids, teachers, but the teachers were overwhelmed, to take on another thing. So imagine if we weaved wellness right from little all the way up to high school and address it on a different level. I think that's a future way to go. So now I'm going to talk about animals. Anybody who's an animal lover, you know, we know how they bring us joy, companionship, you know, they encourage interaction and stimulation. And you know, when you tend to think of horses in therapy, you tend to think of people with mobility issues or perhaps in a wheelchair. You know, if you think about that, that's pretty fantastic experience, right? You're out of the wheelchair, you've got interaction, you've got something that brings you joy. What people don't realize is there's actually a physiotherapy element to it. So in other words, a person who maybe is in a wheelchair may be really stiff and their muscles are really tight, but the walking of a horse actually rocks those joints open. So there's all kinds of benefits. You know, we talk about emotional support dogs. That could be your own dog that, you know, when you're upset, they seem to know, they lie beside you, they make you happy. Again, there's different levels of emotional support dogs. So sometimes if somebody's having an anxiety attack, a dog will be trained to come and lay on top of you and provide that assurance. And you know, we know that animals can be trained to anticipate human needs, right? Predict seizures, seeing eye dogs, all of those kind of things. What I found was that there's really strictly defined designations, and for good reason. So an emotional support dog is not a service dog. A service dog has been bred, and there's thousands and thousands of dollars that have gone into the training. So you're talking about like a seeing eye dog, which has a very complicated role. And again, you know, the certifications can take years. So, and then there's like the visitation animals. Those are the really great guys that go to long-term care homes or schools. They're just, you know, they got to love people. They've got to be super well behaved, and it's really to provide that stimulation. So the basis of therapeutic animal experience is the human-animal connection. So for what I do, you wouldn't want to bring somebody who doesn't particularly like animals. It would be contrary, but that's kind of the basis. So now I'm going to talk specifically about my practice and how it came about. So when I first started doing this, they said, "Oh, MaryLou, this is alternative. This is crazy. You know, you shouldn't be doing this now." That was a long time ago. It's now a thing. It's much more popular. But really, you know, to me, it was such common sense. Okay, so I'm going to provide an environment that's really fun and engaging, you know, interesting, you know, create a place of safety, set the foundation for trust, build my relationship with my clients. My clients love coming to the farm. That's it. And that's the magic, right? Or at least the first step. And then I had to have the skill to provide opportunity for self-awareness and learning. So I started with just the environment. Having worked in a psychiatric hospital, very clinical, white walls, as you would expect. And so I thought, okay, well, why don't I do something different? Why don't they come? So you'll see in this picture, it's a winter setting, and there's a little fire pit. So in the winter, I might have a big blazing fire, and we sit and talk around the fire. It's kind of common sense. Like a lot of people would prefer that than sitting in an office. So this is a little summer setting. We joke and call this the outdoor living room. And again, it's just a big tent, and there's lots of eclectic, comfortable chairs. Again, nothing fancy, but it feels more comfortable to sit in that environment. And usually when you're sitting there, a duck will walk by, or you know, a cat will go by, and it just adds to the ambiance, if you will. And then what I thought was, okay, let's include engaging activities. Why not arts and crafts, going for a walk in the woods with the dogs, brushing a horse, maybe learning how to ride. Sometimes just hanging out with the animals. is very therapeutic. Some of the busier clients might want to do chores. That's okay. I'm all for that. You know, going on a nature walk, collecting stuff, and sometimes we'll collect pine cones and make Christmas decorations or whatever. And so all I did was basically incorporate those kind of things. And what happens is there's a magic that starts happening. You know, kids who come out to the farm, maybe have never seen a horse or an animal, and they connect with it on a different level. You know, and when somebody learns something, like let's say somebody never thought they would ride a horse, so you suddenly created mastery and you built their confidence. And then, you know, it's not just about that. It's like, do you have the clinical skills to take that to a further level? So how did that feel? Have you ever felt like that before? You know, have you ever experienced that kind of mastery or that joy or that confidence? And you can see how clinically I could take it down. Again, what I did was just took our farm and took the best of everything we had, rural environment, loved creatures, outdoor sitting areas, gardens, koi ponds, waterfalls, benches, swings, and then combined it with my clinical training. See, this is what I believe. You can have all of that I have, but that doesn't make you a clinician. You need to have the clinical training to add into this to make it therapeutic. And so when somebody says, I have a therapeutic farm, it becomes really important to ask the question, how is it therapeutic? Because is it just a great visit where you kind of forget about everything? And there's merit to that. But what I do is that much more. It's the same stuff I would do within a clinical office type setting. Okay, so each session that I go into, and somebody observing might not know I'm doing all of this, but I have in my mind a purpose. What is this activity going to accomplish? Most of the stuff I do with the animals in nature obviously are hands-on, but I have in my mind something I want to achieve out of that session. So there's a planned therapeutic goal. And then it's up to me to create that interaction and facilitate that. And it can be, you know, the great thing is I have so many resources and I can do all kinds of fun things. So, you know, whether it's a person who feels more comfortable drawing and is more artistically inclined. And as you can see, we're talking as she's drawing, and there's a rabbit sitting on her knee. And it sounds so silly, but she's just in heaven, and it's totally relaxing. So the other thing that I do is I'm constantly observing, assessing the interactions of the kids, and I can assess attention. You know, if there's attention deficit, I can test, like, I can observe how they interact with the animals, how they interact with I might give them a task. Can they complete it? Are their thoughts racing? Like, what's going on? But because I have such a big resource, I have all kinds of ways I can monitor and assess what's going on for the young person. And now here's the piece that's very exciting. My animals tell me a lot about what's going on. So I'm going to use horses as an example. If anybody knows horses, you go right back. It's a flight-based animal. In the wild, they ran in herds, and they did that for protection. And if one horse on the outside of the herd sensed danger, they throw their head up, and then it ricochets through the whole herd, and everybody runs away. So how that relates to what I do in my practice is, if I put a young person on a horse or an adult, okay, my horse will tell me exactly how they're feeling, even before they even may recognize it in themselves. So, you know, if their head's a little bit up and they're tense, I may ask my client if they're feeling nervous. No, I'm okay. All right, I want you to think about the muscles in your legs. I want you to think about how you're holding the reins. I want you to deep breathe. And they may, or they may say, I am a little nervous here. So then I just intervene with stuff to help them calm down. The interesting thing is a person is more likely to calm themselves down for a horse than themselves. And so that's my hook, because I can then say, you know what, you just proved to me that you can calm yourself down. How did you do that for the horse? Now go practice it this week. Part of my job is not only for the clients, I also need to understand my animals and how I'm going to use them. And, you know, I need to make sure I'm achieving a goal. So I also need the experience not only to be positive for my client, but also positive for my animal, because I need my animal to be calm and trusting going on and working with other people. So there's two things that are going on for me. And then it's my clinical skill to and experience to create those moments of reflection and introspection. So now I'm going to go a little more specific. And I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the specific animals that are on my farm and how I use their personality and their assets to help people. So this dog her name's Spy. She's a pit bull mix, and she's highly attuned to people. She's a little bit excitable, but if I'm going to talk to somebody who is, let's say, going to discuss something that's difficult, or I know they're sad, I will put Spy by them, because Spy just instantly senses that, wants to lick their face, wants to make them feel better. It's, God forbid somebody cry, because then Spy really, just all over them. So that's how I utilize her. I don't know if you can see this. You can't. This is Max. He's a huge German Shepherd. He's 150 pounds. And, when a lot of people, when they first meet him, find him very intimidating, but he's not. He's afraid of everything. And so, then I might, when the kids get to interact with him, or adults, we can start talking about perceptions, first impressions, relationships, and you can just see all the dialogue that go from there. Now, I'm sorry you can't see this little picture, because what this is one of our swings, and the cat's sitting beside a little girl, and she's got a big old apple and a pair of rubber boots, and she's swinging back and forth, and we're talking. You don't get that kind of stuff in an office, and that's the magic. Tuffy is probably the rock star of my horses. Totally patient and motherly. A bomb could go off, and so for me, that's a huge asset, because if I have a young person or somebody who doesn't know and they're really loud, I can trust that Tuffy's not going to freak out or do anything bad. But again, if someone is really anxious, I can put her on Tuffy, and Tuffy will tell me, but Tuffy won't go over the top, whereas other horses might, if that makes sense. This is a miniature pony we have. Her name's Sugar. And I don't know what happened to her, because she came to me later in life, but she's obviously had a negative experience. Okay, so she's pretty shy. She doesn't like men particularly. She likes me because I feed her, but she loves kids. And so, it's a great way to teach people how they interact. So if they get too quick, or they get in her face, or they rush her too much, she'll back up. So if you're trying to help a young person learn regulation, she's a perfect barometer. And then that can lead me talking about how they affect their peers, or when they play with their peers. Here's a great teachable moment. And again, what happened was it was too much energy, and Sugar just went, nope. And then it gives me an opportunity to say, okay, whoa, wait a sec. What do you think Sugar's feeling right now? What's she telling me? What do you need to do differently? And then instantly, often you start thinking about it, and you can change. So this is Luna, my goose. Now I don't know if anybody knows geese. They kind of like their one person. It's usually me. They usually hate my husband. And this is Luna. So what happens is the geese tend to be dominant. But if you stand up tall and you walk towards them, not meanly, assertively, they always back off. And so she was great for the kids that were really intimidated or very shy. I say, okay, I want you to stand up straight, pull your shoulders back, walk forward, and sure as shooting, Luna would turn around and leave. So again, talking that experience, expanding on that experience, it translating into other aspects of their life. Play, love play. And again, we have 100 acres, so there's lots of room to play. So you take this is a young lady making a snow angel. So how do you use that for a dialogue? You can open the dialogue by saying, who is your angels in your life? Who feels like angels for you? And they open up and they start talking about it. Whereas if I said, tell me the people you like, they'll go, I don't know, right? So again, using these kind of interactions. This is a really cool thing. This is a fairy tree, and our local artist gave it to me. There's all these different rooms and chairs and every, like there's even a hot tub. It's really cool. And kids love it. So how could I use that? Well, I could say something like, okay, this is your world. It's 100%. And you get to invite whoever you want on your world. Who would you invite and why? Who wouldn't you invite and why? What would be the rules of your world? And you can see how that would lead to further dialogue and opening up doors. But it's a very gentle way of weaving into that discussion. Now, I don't always use this approach, but I use it to facilitate my relationship with people. So I have lots of people that come that I don't have to make ride a horse, but it's the option, right? So just as some summary of some of my thoughts, this is just a glimpse of how I've been able to become creative in my practice to engage people and support people. At my age, I'm hoping to inspire the next generation of young people who want to think out of the box to support mental health and wellness. I really believe we need to have a proactive approach to mental health and wellness. We need to get on that. I think also focusing on potentials, strengths, and abilities, and teaching happiness and balance. Many years ago, I was asked often to speak about mental illness. I refused to do that. Now we need to just steer back and focus on the other part. And I really think we need to push. It's folks like you that are going to push access to mental health services. Buyer beware, do your homework, and we need to challenge the system to support. And that's my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, MaryLou. This is extremely helpful, and I know that all of our audience is very much going to appreciate your perspective and just your focus on what can be done in terms of mental health strategies as it pertains to this area. When I was listening to the presentation, I think two things that really jumped out at me is we recognize that animal-facilitated therapy is effective for a wide range of individuals coming from a variety of challenges and just well-being in general. We certainly know from COVID that all of us can use support in terms of our well-being. The one that I think that jumped out the most for me, though, was when we think about, we know from research, people impacted by FASD, there's two main ones that really jump out. We know that 90% of those individuals are going to have a mental health challenge at some point in their life. We also know that over 80% of them are going to have sensory processing aspects involved as well. And so I think that's certainly a large part of why within your presentation, you really spoke about that concreteness and that ability to physically make that connection, and I can see why that would be so effective for our kiddies. So thank you very much for this. And once again, to our audience, we thank you for joining us for our speaker series, and we will see you next month.